Coach, we'll get started with you and move on to Luke after that. You graduated a 3+ year starter at quarterback in Pete Coughlin. What does that race for the job look like now, heading into camp in the 2017 season? Grab the mic.
Oops, sorry. Well, first of all, Brent, I didn't finish my lima beans today. Seriously, I thought I was like 10 years old. I was getting forced to eat lima beans, so I apologize, Brent. Secondly, as I saw Bobby Noble, I remember him last year looking at him on film like, wow. And then on the second play of our game last year, he killed our quarterback who you asked about. I didn't know he was 37 years old. Jeez, Bobby. But to answer your question, losing Pete is a big loss. Not many players have meant more to their program than he has for us the last 4 years. He started playoff games his freshman year, won us a playoff game his sophomore year. Those are big shoes to fill, especially in my household because my youngest daughter, that's his favorite play. That's her favorite player, basically because they're the same size. She was 10. But I made a bold statement, and I'll say this in front of two great quarterbacks here today. A young man from Case, Danny over there, I can't imagine a player meaning more to his team than you do. Unbelievable. People complain that Case doesn't play us or Thomas More. I'm glad we don't play Case. Unreal quarterback. And then Brendan over there from Thomas More. Obviously I have a lot of respect for your offensive coordinator. Trevor was a great player, a good friend of mine. And you're a terrific, terrific quarterback. Our quarterback will be first team all conference this year. That's how confident I am in our two kids. Alex Rouse has waited his turn. They're different than Pete. The throw the ball down the field mentality will be back at W&J, the intermediate passing. Losing Pete, we lose the ability to create something out of nothing, which half the plays we called, we just told them to run around back there anyway. Now we'll be able, our intermediate passing game, which will be able to give us a chance to play against the real good defenses because we're going to be able to throw the ball in the windows. So Alex will get the first chance. Jake Adams had a terrific JV year for us and was just an outstanding quarterback at Louisville High School a few years ago. So we're really, really excited about our two quarterbacks.
Aside from quarterback, what is a positional battle that you're really interested to see how it shakes out this year in camp? Running back.
The quarterback battles, obviously is big, and they also the quarterbacks to forget about one thing too with the quarterbacks is as long as they throw the ball up to Jesse Zubik, we got a chance. I mean, just throw it to 87. But running back is very interesting because we have Austin Kemp who played a lot of games for us and was our starter last year. I think we didn't give him any carries in the Thomas More game, so that's how smart of a coach we are. But he's back. But we also have some younger players. Justin Vickles back. But we also have two young freshmen. Were freshmen last year who were outstanding football players for us. And I always talk about JV games and all that. And we played 8 JV games last year, and they were terrific in those games. Jordan Rust and Ron Tuck. So that's going to be an interesting battle. Unfortunately, at the running back position, it's hard to really give them a lot of carries live. So we'll weigh a lot on our scrimmage, and like Coach Smitley, who I thought was a first-year head coach, Chris, you did a great job up here. Like he said, I think with those 4, and I forgot to mention a kid named Brennan Geiger, those 5, I will be more of a carry by, based on who's hot or something like that. We won't have Ryan Ruffing receiving 40 carries again.
The defense really ramped up its aggressiveness last season with 112 tackles for loss, the most since you've been the head coach at W&J. What were the main contributing factors to that?
I just think the aggressiveness of our calling. I think Coach Gallagher, who, obviously Coach LeVar, our defensive coordinator, did a great job. We have a coach, and a lot of the coaches in here know him. He was the head coach at Perry High School for a lot of years. Coach Gallagher, who's a W&J grad, I think he's our defensive line coach. He did a great job of coaching. He's back again. So I think those are two important factors. Obviously, I like to be aggressive offensively, and I think in the past our defensive philosophy hasn't really matched up, and that's my fault as the head coach. But I told Vince when I hired him that I wanted to be more aggressive, and I'll give him credit that he was, and he's a terrific young coach, and I only think he's going to get better in his time at W&J.
Coach, last question for you. Who are a couple of players whose names may not be well known to everybody in this room, but some of those players you expect to make large contributions to your program?
I mean, Jordan West is a running back. I already kind of mentioned him from Wash High. We haven't had a lot of Wash High kids from right there do have great careers at W&J in a while, but I really expect him to be up there. We have a young defensive lineman from the Bulls School in Maryland who's a sophomore who I thought, was just a terrific player and played a little bit and was great in our JV games. Jeffrey Oxner. So there's two names like that, and it's important because we're going to have some young players. I think a lot of people know about Luke, and it feels like he's been here for 6 years. I mean, he's another transfer, but I mean, he's not gotten a lot of notoriety. So I'll give his name. When you have players like Pete Coughlin and Ryan Snedeker and Jesse Zubik on your team, and you played with Ryan Ruffin, you kind of in your defensive player in a program where the head coach is the offensive coordinator. I understand it gets frustrating at times, right? and you feel neglected at times, but I really think the world of Luke. He's ready to have an outstanding year, and just the fact of the matter that he's a 2-year captain for us shows you what type of player he is, and shows you what type of leadership he is and what type of person that I know that he'll be once he graduates and moves on with his life.
Coach, great, thank you. Luke, a couple questions for you. You were initially a wide receiver when you arrived at W&J, but transitioned to defensive back. How did your background as a receiver help you on defense, and how did that change come about? Also, was it something you pursued, or was it something the coaches came to you and checked in to see if you were interested in doing so?
Well, actually, I grew up playing wide receiver and defensive back most of my life and throughout high school, so the transition over was pretty smooth. It was a familiar transition, but I did learn a lot by playing wide receiver. I think the things that I learned that were the best for me were the little things like the alignments, pre-snap of receivers, and the way that they try to stem defensive backs. I actually played a lot of special teams my first year at W&J, and I did pretty well on kickoffs, and that's when I think Coach realized that I was able to tackle. So he brought up that, with us having a bunch of receivers, we were pretty loaded at receiver, that I might have a little more luck getting on the field faster if I switched over to defense. So I trusted him and thought it was the best decision for the team and for me, so it ended up working out.
Your defense allowed just 1 touchdown in the second half of a game over the final 6 games last year, and just 3 points in the final 5 games. What do you think was the biggest reason for that?
Biggest part about that question was the second half. Yeah, I think our coaches did a great job at halftime with their adjustments, got us ready. But I think that with that being said, our defense as a unit, we want to be able to play like that in both halves of the game and throughout the whole season long. And people might not realize, but we had a whole new defense installed last year, so that took a while to get used to. And I think with the returners and the experience that we're bringing back on defense, that we're going to be able to get that done all year long.
Last season, you finished second on the team in tackles and had the most solo stops of any defender. This year, you were named a team captain. What type of leadership do you look to bring both on and off the field this season?
Well, like Bobby said earlier, I like to lead by example. I want to bring a lot of energy to the field, not only in games, but in practice as well. And I want to make sure that all of our guys are having fun. I mean, we're all playing football because we love the game, and sometimes people just need to be reminded of that. Off the field, we're all great friends, and we hang out all the time. We're in college, so we like going out. So I think my role as a veteran and as a leader on the team is to make sure we do that responsibly, keep everyone out of trouble.
Good answer.
Good answer. Luke, last question. You've averaged, earlier you mentioned special teams. You've averaged nearly 25 yards per kickoff return and 14 yards per punt return over the last 2 seasons. What is it about returning kicks that you like the most, and how are you able to be so consistent in the return game?
Like we touched on before, I played wide receiver, and after transitioning to defense, obviously don't get the ball as much, so it's nice getting the ball, but it's also nice putting the offense in position to put points on the board because that makes it easier for us as a defense. And I think that I was able to stay so consistent because I'm fortunate enough to be playing on return teams with a bunch of my best friends that put their bodies out on the line to get the blocks done, and I have the easy job. I just have to pick one of the holes that they open up and run through it. So,
Luke, thanks. W&J will get its season underway on September 2nd at home against St. John Fisher College.